And anybody that's used TypeScript for any time period will probably have played with this at some point in their time. It's like this really great way in which you can write some code and see the sort of JavaScript equivalent. And this is a version from 2016. So 4 years time between those things, still the exact same. But this one, the JavaScript actually runs through archive.org, so I thought I'd keep it running to show you. And to get yourself in the sort of mindset of TypeScript, the team at the time, this was like Microsoft's 2012 to 2014, and they're in a position where most people think that this company is not necessarily a good, positive place to be working. And one of the things that like people were particularly suspicious about is the idea that this company that is known for doing some not so great stuff in the open source world is going to be taking all this JavaScript and going to be sneakily putting like I don't know what in it, and the output of this JavaScript, who knows what it could look like. So one of the primary goals of like this playground was to also show you that the TypeScript that you put on the left is so close to the JavaScript that you see on the side that like it's not actually a worry that you're running it through this transpiler, because it's going to end up like pretty reasonable code, and you can, if you need to get rid of TypeScript, you can get rid of it, and that's okay. So it had a few goals, like teaching people, like showing people that you can use classes, you can use inheritance. These were things that didn't necessarily exist in did not even load. No, I'm running it off archive.org, so it being working is it showed you that you could do a bunch of things, and some of these things didn't even exist in JavaScript at the time. So TypeScript adopted a bunch of features that weren't quite there yet, and now they're standardized, and there's different ways to do classes. Well, no, classes are the same, right? Well, yeah, exactly. Classes are fine. We're good with classes, but decorators, that's a whole different ball game. So again, this is where it was 2012. This is where it was 2019. And then I joined the team, and my first goal was to try and fix and update this project, because I used the playground a ton. In my opinion, when you're teaching people TypeScript, you kind of use the playground. When you're learning TypeScript, you use the playground, and then once you're in between those kind of phases, you're just trying to get stuff done on your own stuff. And so it kind of hits this point where it's really useful when you're starting and really useful when you're an advanced user. And in that time in between, there's not really much there for you. So I spent a good chunk of time trying to improve the TypeScript playground in order to give us, in order to try and hit that middle ground, to try and provide like ways in which people could find ways to learn inside this environment, and ways to like actually keep up to date with what's going on in TypeScript inside a sort of fun, safe sandboxed environment. And so this is the new playground. Ta-da! I know, right? Fancy reveal and everything. Thanks, yeah, right? So I'll give you a few ideas of what has changed in the new playground. I've been shipping it incrementally, so it's just like you'll have just seen these things come out over time. One of the cool things here is that you can test out like new language features. You can run on the nightlies. You can put it on the old versions of TypeScript. So if you're reporting a bug, it would be really great for you to go and be like, well, it didn't exist on 3.3.3, but it did on 3.6. And then we added a ton of new, as many compiler flags as I could find are available and editable in here. One of the cool things in this is that you can also run the TypeScript playground in JavaScript. So if you're wanting to try and test out some of the JS doc support we just covered, you could actually test it out in here. So you could be like, write some JS doc, hello, and then,
Could you zoom in?
yeah,
Thank you.
there we go. Is that better? That much better? Yeah? All right, there we go, yeah. What a noob over here, come on. At param, do curlies. The name is after, right? So, hello. And that's a string, sure. So you could be like function, a open. This will be turned into a string thing, and do that. And so in here, it should be able to infer, if I've done it right, Yeah, I'm just gonna jump and take you to my working example. Wait,
One curly.
is it what? Oh, the second curly. Yeah, the second curly is when you're writing. Yeah, exactly. Object types. I'm glad we got a bunch of people that know what they're doing here.
What about the new line?
Call it hello.
The new line.
Remove the new line. Between the function.
No, that should be fine. It should definitely be fine with that one.
You need to name it hello.
Need to name it hello. Yeah, thanks. There we go. I'm glad. There we go. Hey! Right, there we go. Thank you, collective. That was good work, everybody. And that is a feature of the TypeScript playground. And so one of the ways that I can work around not knowing how to do this is that there's a large set of examples built into the playground now. So one of the things that I've been starting to think about is like, how do we teach TypeScript to a lot of people? And one of the ways that we can address it without having to make drastic changes to the current documentation is to add an entirely new set of documentation to the playground. And what this does effectively is gives you lots of small little sandboxed environments to sort of understand what different parts of TypeScript are and how they all come together. So like this one here is just like, how do objects work? Because people coming into JavaScript might not know that yet. And then you have this place where you can say to them, hey, if you start typing here and do it line by line, you'll get to see that it will provide autocomplete and give you a lot of extra structure about how all of these things come together. And if you're just putting it on a website as like static text, then people don't really get the chance to sort of bounce ideas back and forth on it. So that's been really cool. This is sort of separated into like existing things in JavaScript that TypeScript's like either enhance or already cover, because TypeScript is a superset of JavaScript, and TypeScript. So this TypeScript section actually came out of a glossary that I had been working on as I'd been learning all of the compiler itself and trying to be like, okay, so what is a discriminant type? Turns out it's a fancy way of saying it's either one thing or the other. It's basically another. But it's really nice to be able to look into something like this and sort of be like, okay, so an API response can be one of these three things. So I can now look in at all these different places and be like, okay, so if error exists in a response, then this thing in here must be the third one of this. And that is a part of a discriminant type through type narrowing, blah, blah, blah. But you don't have to learn it from me right now. You can just go into here and be like, oh, he said the word type narrowing. And that's probably in the JavaScript section somewhere. I don't know. It's in here. Oh, it doesn't all fit. That's why. There we go. Type widening and narrowing. So you can learn about that while you're going through all these different processes. And so the playground is now not just an environment for sharing code back and forth, but for actually learning about all the different parts of the TypeScript and JavaScript and sort of seeing how these things come together. As we were starting to build all these things out, we started building PR-based playgrounds. So think about it as like when everybody's really excited about the question mark dot operator for 3.7, woo! How do you even get a chance to try that? Like, I mean, those PRs lasted like weeks, and they were like very long, arduous things that needed like pretty serious testing and like feedback from the other TypeScript core members and other like randos on the internet. And one way in which we could get people do that is by, say, taking pull requests and generating playgrounds for them. So it's a really low barrier to entry. And so the part of process of building that gave us the ability to also build nightly builds and beta builds and all these other things. So when we look now, there's an entire section called What's New? And this just takes all of the new features that we have in upcoming betas and releases and lets you like play with those in a way that's completely sandboxed. And again, you don't have to go upgrade your TypeScript code base to go and be like, hey, how does nullish coalescing work? Because you have this example here, which is kind of contentious when I posted this one on Reddit. They're like, this is a bad example of nullish coalescing. No one would write code like that. But that's what examples are for. So this one covers like a really useful feature in a way that gives you the chance to sort of actually understand the problem from many different angles. And so I haven't got analytics on this, but I'm willing to bet that almost everyone just went directly to the what's new optional chaining. And I'm just like, hey, look at those three things in a row, and they're all working. String or undefined. Sorry, I'll zoom in a little bit more again. Wow. So I know, isn't that exciting? Another thing that I was really happy about this was, this version doesn't have the question mark .auto thing, but you heard Nathan talk a lot about how we have code fixes for a lot of things. He's like, yeah, if you're using Flow and converting to TypeScript, just do it and press a few buttons and it'll all automatically come in. Well, those things are now in the playground too, which you may think like that's not a very valuable thing, but from my perspective, trying to document all of TypeScript, code fixes are like some of the most invisible parts of the entire code base. Like, who knows where they're actually coming from? So with 3.7, Nathan actually did some great work on improving infer from usage. And effectively, it allows you to sort of generate the types for a thing based on how it's actually being used. So not too surprising there. And I think it's this thing, this little dot maybe. I can't remember how this works. Oh, I bet it's because I'm zoomed in. Oh yeah, good point. Quick fix, info. There we go. It added an any for me. Look at me. Woo, feeling really appreciated there by my editor. I had to add this. It was good work. And so that's generally the playground. The playground has got like a few cool things, like it'll automatically format your code, it'll generate the compiled output, it gives a lot of useful feedback. One of the cool things that I added very towards the end was the ability to select text, and it actually is represented up here in the URL. So if I open a new one, it will actually keep the selected text. So when you're like sending code samples between a lot of people and they get really long and arduous, which they do, then suddenly you can be like, this is the part that's actually interesting of this entire thing. I know, right? Thanks. So the TypeScript playground is now kind of done. I spent a good chunk making it working. But one of the next things that's going on the TypeScript docs world is I'm starting to work on redesigning all the docs and all of the website and all the infrastructure for that. And so that will actually come with a new playground eventually. I'm gonna take a break from this for a while. But so this is like the kind of end goal of version 3. So you're at version 2 now, and the version 3 will have things like showing you what the DTS file looks like, allowing you to evaluate JavaScript at runtime and see like the errors and the reports, as well as being able to sort of understand what the code you're seeing looks like, so it can introspect between types and things like that. So it's looking really cool. It's going to be pretty awesome, and I'm pretty pumped about where that's going. So maybe that's everything that I think is interesting on this. Yeah, okay, I'll call it this. Thank you, everybody. I'll take some questions. Woo! All right, we'll start. Whoa, okay. Well, let's start from the left and we'll work our way across. Sorry. Yusa.
Is this open source?
Oh, this is how I should have started it. All right.
Right for the gut there.
Yeah, right. Question 1. Is this open source? Yes. Week 1 of me joining TypeScript, I went and took the website and open sourced all of it. So, I'm like, yep. I was outside TypeScript for a long time, not being able to contribute. So that's fixed. This actually came off from, you learn very quickly never to Google TS play. This is TypeScript play, which is an open source code base, which I have an open source fork of. So it's this. It's all documented in the web page of TypeScript's Git repo. But it's effectively, I forked someone else's code. I emailed them a few times, like, I'm Microsoft, I'm not going to steal and embrace, extend, extinguish. I'm going to embrace, extend, and eventually just move it into the TypeScript code base. But they were fine with it. And so I got all that, and I've been working on it ever since. So effectively doubled the amount of commits and code in there since then. So it's more or less an entirely new project. Oh, I do have something cool. I knew I had something cool that I was missing. I have a goal of pretty soon. Let's see if I can get to this in time. My favorite website. I want to split out the playground. So I've been working on first moving the website to Gatsby. And one of the things that I'm doing there is sort of splitting out the playground into two separate components. One is the sort of core editor that has, damn it, there are so many features in here. I've already forgot to tell you about one. Right, one of the amazing things is like literally really cool is that like it does automatic type acquisition. So like you can just use types from @types in here. It also supports Dino style imports. So like here's an import of compose from this like, sorry, if you can't see it at the back, that's a weird import. And that's how they do it in the sort of semi-sequel to Node called Dino. So you can see here, I have imported a function called compose. You can see on the types that it's got a ... function, so it just takes a bunch of functions and does a thing. And you can see here there's one called concat, and that just concatenates some string. So it now like just jam your requires and your imports in the playground, and it'll try and figure it out for them. This is useful normally, but when you're working and showing people React stuff, it's like essential, because suddenly you get just div elements that actually have gone through the full React components, and you get all the props and blah blah blah. So that's a really cool feature. That makes it really, really good to share code samples with each other. I'm gonna keep finding these features as I talk. Yes. So yeah, I'm splitting out this core editor, and the idea being that then all these libraries that have type definitions or use TypeScript can create their own playgrounds that include all their own type definitions. I have one of my websites. I built this like 3 years ago, so it doesn't work anymore. But I know, right? But I would use this now. I wanted to showcase the API for my library because it was quite a complicated library and quite a complicated API. And so it was like a full Monaco editor that had the full type definitions in it. And now it's actually just easier for me to take this code and just jam it straight into the playground, which means it will actually work because of the type acquisition. So now you see how this one's not even got an underline anymore. This one's flashing over here, if you can see it, because it's just downloading all of the node ones. So path is now accurate, so path dot, base name, dir name, all this other documentation is in there, so you can just jam your node in there too, and it'll automatically figure all that out too. As well as all of my like danger stuff, where you get really good comments, because I spent a lot of time on my JS doc, and everybody should be doing that. So yeah, this is a really great feature, that one. Whew, I can't believe I forgot that. I can go back to questions now, actually. I'll remember another feature in a second. You're up, sir.
Have you thought about building any of this into VS Code as an extension?
To some extent, all of this is copying VS Code's extensions. VS Code's version of the TypeScript sort of runtime for Monaco is considerably better than this. So, no. And it has a different constraints. Sure.
Yeah, I was thinking about it more as it is arguably better in terms of the actual output.
Yeah.
But the iteration time, and run the compiler and everything, where I can imagine a good example would be if you're creating maybe some crazy template or something. I've created separate single files.
Yeah.
It's just okay, I'm gonna mess with these parameters until they're right. I could see this being useful for something like that.
I think we made export this code. Someone in the TypeScript team made maybe I did, export this code to VS Code. Was that you, Andrew?
I asked you to make it, but I don't think you did.
Oh. So we were talking about it, definitely. I think that discussion, I was like, you know what? I don't use that as much, so I built it into Safari instead. So if I go to a TypeScript issue and see, it has a cute little button on every code sample that sends it directly there. I'm hoping this has a code sample. Yeah, but maybe they're JavaScript. Maybe it's during a demo that everything's... Oh, it's in the Safari tech preview, so it's not my actual one. So I added that to my editor, but I never edited it to VS Code. That was just lazy of me. That's 10 minutes worth of work. So yeah, I think it's easier to just send people over to, see how it's moved, but it hasn't added the blue icon. I'm gonna call that buggy. So it could have worked. There it is. so that just sends you straight over to the TypeScript playground with that code embedded inside it, which again is really useful when you're reading so many issues and just want to verify that it is what it is. I don't think it's worth. I think it's worth actually doing since I've already agreed to do it once. But maybe we could get that in VS Code. Like realistically, all I'd really do is just jam a web view in there, which because the infrastructure is not worth it. In fact, the infrastructure is really interesting. The way in which it allows us to have multiple versions of TypeScript on the left is actually by completely separating the sort of runtime from the editor. And I'm not sure if VS Code allows you to download as much JavaScript as would be necessary to like run this. It's like a few megabytes worth of JavaScript that then needs to be evaluated in the right context. Trades? Questions? Ma'am?
I just want to give you a comment that this is amazing.
Yes!
Yes! The best documentation ever.
Thanks!
Woo!
Woo! I'm a big fan.
Yes.
I know, right? It's like, yeah, I don't need any more praise on this baby. My poor wife has to hear me come back and be like, well, this language I've been working on that just runs in a browser, I've been making it run better in a browser. Like, it's really, but no, I'm a big fan. I love this. Oh, God. Like, I wake up in the weekends and I'm just like, how can I improve the playground?
Yes.
I know. And, like, we've had, like, free PRs since it's been open, but, like, other people can improve if you've got ideas. So you've had your hand up for a while.
So I'm only asking because you put a lot of thought into this. When you switch to JavaScript, why do you leave the results view open? Does it actually compile to anything?
No, in fact, it does. Well, yeah, it's open because it's open because it's harder for me to get rid of it. But it actually does change it to say using JavaScript, no compilation needed. So it's there, but it's just the new version. That sidebar will actually be useful. So.
Can you use this to down level? Like under config, can you download the level JavaScript and have show error in it?
I believe so. It's a compiler.
JavaScript to JavaScript, right? Like,
oh.
if you wanted to use us instead of saying that.
So his thing here is like, if you wanted to use Java, like, you know, like Babel-like compilation through TypeScript, you could in theory do that. But I have disabled it, and that's not allowable. I don't know if I'll allow that. It just feels a bit confusing for someone. So
when are you and Nathan getting together to flip those panes? Have a JavaScript side that builds
to choose the TypeScript. No joke, that's going to be one of the sidebars effectively. I think that like in JavaScript mode, then one of these will be what is the TypeScript equivalent of what you've got there. I don't think that's infeasible. Hey, you just saw that fix it. Infer from any everywhere, that'll be fine. So I think within this structure that is actually doable. I don't think it's the architecture of it would make that very difficult right now, but it wouldn't in the future. Ooh, have we run out of questions? So, we finally got round.
Have you considered a dark theme?
Hey, that is the trend du jour, hey. So like, I don't know if it's like a Microsoft thing, but we actually kind of, as part of accessibility and all these other things, kind of actually have to do it. So docs.microsoft is like the new sort of place where all documentation tends to go, and it actually has light, dark, and high contrast, just like VS Code. And my goal with the new TypeScript website is to crib as many good ideas as possible from the VS docs. So they're like, TypeScript's a good player in the Microsoft team, even if they are doing cool open source stuff. And so stealing these, I will grudgingly do because I still feel like it's a dying fad. But the high contrast one is pretty valuable. My friends use this on VS Code back at my old job, and I can see where they're going with this. So Microsoft has had like dark mode for a long time, I think, and they actually also added a third one, which was high contrast. It's not quite as good as the mustard from Windows 95, like yellow red, but was it called Hot Dog Stand? It was really good, that. But my goal, I'll show you, is to include a bunch of that stuff. So like, this is effectively what the new website should look like. I'm gonna try and put a focus on like accessibility and like multiple localizations, trying to explain it in different ways. But the actual sort of docs page is more or less a sort of a crib of that one. And there you go for you right now. I'll just put a little oval in here that could represent the little sun. There we go. Live design right here, folks. White circle. Actually a circle. There we go. That's the placeholder for the thing. There you go. It's now in the design spec, so it should happen.
OS theme.
Use the OS, yeah, I think I'll try and do all that. Use the OS theme, but allow for customizability. That's the right way to go, I agree. I also think some of this is built into the Microsoft design style system, so I don't think it should be hard. Okay? Pardon?
Vim key bindings.
Yeah, Emacs key bindings are my thing, right? I don't know. Most people that have like Vim key bindings tend to have an extension for their editor that has Vim key bindings. For a long time, I used a thing called Vimari, which is like real good. That like provides like Vimium style things in your editor. Really useful to be able to like use your keyboard to jump around in a web browser. That is a side discussion. Okay, we got sir.
I actually wanted to extend off his question, which is I think the JS to JS like option is actually a good idea, because I was looking back at like Slack messages with my office when they were initially talking about TypeScript.
Yeah.
And they were confused about what TypeScript was. They didn't know that it was also a compiler, and they're like, wait, what's going on? How do I compile TypeScript to JavaScript? And someone suggested Babel. So I think that by showing that TypeScript is also a suitable
JavaScript
placement to Babel, that you could also show that like, hey, in this playground, I can also convert like ES9 to ES6.
Yes, you can. Okay, all right. I will rethink my decision, but I'm not sure if I'll agree with you. You've got to be a design dictator somehow. But no, if we can figure a way that doesn't do it in a way that's confusing, because like if you just see JavaScript on one side and it shows JavaScript on the other side, and like people know it's TypeScript, that can be a bit confusing. But all right, I'll have a think about it. Yeah. All right. Yeah. Cool. Thanks, everyone. Woo!